It's a Mailbag Monday, and we're talking about the Celtics' depth. Can this roster win a championship in the next few years? The NBA Cup and players who hate me. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Beantown, be ever ready. It's the C's. Who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT Karalis. Recap the madness every game, every practice. Prime time dapping D White on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Your team is the Boston Celtics, and I'm talking about them, well, not every Monday through Friday now. This week, I was mistaken in past weeks when I've been saying we'd go 5 days. This week, we're going to 3 days a week. We're heading into the slow part of the schedule, so we're going to dial it back a notch. 3 days a week, still more free podcasting you're going to find anywhere else, so subscribe. It's on every podcasting app, totally free every time I post a show. Watch it on YouTube, get into the comment section, share your thoughts with me. I'm John Karalis, beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've been covering the Celtics for about 20 years now. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It's a Mailbag Monday. Mailbag questions, go to johnkaralis.com/mailbag, johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That's how I organize all of these. Later on, players who hate me. Luckily, I don't think that list is long, at least not to my knowledge. We'll talk about Jaylen Brown at the 2. We'll talk about NBA Cup stuff, whether the Celtics can win a title with this roster at any point after Jayson Tatum comes back. We're going to start with JG from Methuen. Do you think depth is a problem? A lot of successful teams have amazing bench pieces, which I feel the Celtics have always lacked. Well, okay, so I guess the question, like Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, not good enough, right? I think Pritchard qualifies as depth. I think Hauser qualifies as depth. But the Celtics have not typically gone like a strong 9-10 deep. So Luke Cornett has had his moments. Obviously, he had a really good year last year. Al Horford had his moments. Obviously, he was a really good part of the bench for the last couple of seasons, although it was kind of like on and off starter. You know what I mean? This year, bench is, well, the roster is an issue. The roster is an issue. So, yeah, depth is going to be an issue this year. And I don't know where the Celtics' depth is going to come from moving forward. I think this team is now squarely in second apron. Like, this is the meat of the second apron era is starting to take hold. And when you have expensive top-end talent, you're sacrificing, I think, further on down. So the depth, I think, is going to be a little bit of an issue, but your top-end talent is going to be good enough to kind of carry you through. So I don't – when the Celtics are healthy, I don't think the depth will be an issue. Like next year, we'll have a better idea. Like I think with Tatum and Brown and White presumably all coming back next year, we'll have a sense of what bigs might be available. What did they get for Anthony Simons? What did they get for George Niang? Is it part of the same trade? How good has Hugo Gonzalez gotten? How good is Baylor Shireman? How good is Jordan Walsh? Like whether the Celtics have good depth kind of depends on like Shireman and Walsh kind of taking next steps. This will be the year for them to prove that they belong in that mix. But yeah, depth, I think, is something that they're going to have to build. But the whole roster is part of a problem right now. They're just, until they rebuild completely and start from the bottom, completely tank, get a bunch of draft picks in, they're just going to have to be kind of like piecemealing their way through and getting to some level of depth. But yes, depth is a problem. Ryan P asks, I want to know if you think the Celtics, as currently constructed, can realistically win a championship within the next 3 years, assuming Tatum is completely healthy. What could the Celtics potentially do to remedy the issue if they're not good enough? So this roster, they are not a Jayson Tatum away from winning it all. They need more. They definitely need a big, at least, and we'll see this year what Garza can do, and maybe Amari Williams can surprise. I don't know. Like, I like Williams's passing and vision. I am curious to see how long of a project he really is, but I don't know where their Simons Niang move, whenever that happens, I don't know what that will get them. So they're not good enough. They need to get a big, somebody that they can count on. It's an actual rim protector, and they need to get back to a defensive mindset. And it's going to start with getting someone who can protect the rim. So I think they have a couple more years with Derrick White. I don't know how he's going to age. He's in his early 30s. So the next couple of years, he should be fine. But then after that, curious to see where he goes. Jaylen Brown in a couple of years is going to be 30. Tatum's going to be pushing 30. He'll be 29 in a couple of years. So the Celtics are starting. It's so weird to say this about this team, but they're not that far off from, oh, wow, everybody's over 30. And we're starting to look at the Celtics as an older roster rather than a younger roster. And so this next 3 years, as they kind of get through Jayson Tatum's 20s, they're going to need some retooling, starting with the big, starting with the continuing with the bench. So that I think is going to be where the Celtics really have to build their next contender, which, by the way, Brad Stevens is trying to do. He is trying to find these, like, maybe Garza, maybe Minot, maybe those are the guys that are the depth pieces, to go back to the first question from Jay. Maybe those guys end up being the depth pieces, and the Celtics go out and get their starting center somewhere else, and all of a sudden things start to snap into place. So there's that as a possibility, that the Celtics, there's so much work to be done. It's hard to say when that work will finally be done. Is it ever really done? But all right, we'll get back into cap questions. The NBA Cup, Jaylen Brown, where should he play? What should his position be? That's all coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money, which is going to help you take control of your finances. Maybe you're trying to grow your savings. Maybe you're trying to plan a big purchase, a car, a house. Monarch puts you in the driver's seat because it's like a personal CFO. You get full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a full, complete financial command center. So all of your accounts, all of your investment, all of your spending, it's all in one place. So it's not managing money. You're building your wealth. How do you build your wealth? You got to make sure you're controlling where your spending is going. So money is going into investments. Yes, you need your disposable income. You need to have some fun with your money, but are you having too much fun? And that's where the tracking comes in, because if you're like me, you have spent too much eating out, or having a little too much fun with buying a game or buying stuff for your dogs. I'm guilty. I'm definitely a spender. So Monarch's going to help me rein that in. So if you had all your accounts and spending in one place, it's just super helpful. This command center, Monarch Money, is going to really help you out. Take control. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. You get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA, for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Check out Locked On NBA and Locked On NBA Game Night, 2 podcasts on the Locked On NBA feed covering all the big stories. We'll be looking at international competition on game night. I'm generally there on Fridays with Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans. So go check that out. Add that feed to your mix, and you get 3 podcasts on 2 feeds to keep you covered all summer long. That's, not a bad deal. Next question comes from Fuad, who says, am I right in understanding that Jaylen's salary increases each year are not necessarily tied to the changing cap? So yes, the way it works, and the reason why Fuad is asking this is it's not a direct tie to you're always getting 35% of the cap. You get, as a supermax, 35% of the cap in the year you qualify. So if the salary cap is at 200 million, you get 35%, you get $70 million. And then you're eligible for raises of 8%. It depends. Some are 5%, some are 8%. Jaylen, I think, is 8%. And the reason why that's actually helpful for the Celtics is the cap's been going up 10%. And so, generally speaking, under normal circumstances, player raises actually outpace the increase of the cap, and that's making things difficult. And it's a little element to everything that we really don't talk about much because it hasn't been much of an issue. But under the second apron rules, these increases, I think maybe teams need to look at tying the increases to the salary cap, because normally these supermax contracts raises outpace the cap. So that hasn't been the case right now. And so Jaylen's supermax, Jayson's supermax, for now, not as damaging as a supermax is going to be in 3 years, because those guys are going to be getting 8% raises and the cap's going to be going up 5 or 6%. And it's just, you're spending a whole lot more money relative to what's coming in. So to Fuad's point, who says, I'm holding out hope that we can keep both Jays for a few more seasons. Yeah, I think this is one of the things that I still think that a Jaylen trade is inevitable at the very least. And at some point, I've said it before, people hate me for it, but the fact is both of those guys, Jaylen and Jayson, are going to go at some point. No one's going to finish their career in Boston. Hate to say it, but it's probably true. But for now, I think the Celtics, depending on how they maneuver, I think they're really trying to take the next 2-3 seasons and say, let's keep the Jays together and try like hell to build something around those guys that works. Now, Jaylen is under contract through 28-29. So that's 3 more seasons. So it's this upcoming season and then 3 more. I think by that last year, he's probably good. Like we're talking about Jaylen and Jayson starting in 27-28 making $60+ million. So they'll combine to make $123 million. It's a lot of money for 2 guys to make. So we'll see how it goes, but there is some hope for extending this window a little bit because of that little quirk with the cap smoothing and all the TV money coming in and the cap increases going up to 10%. That's been helpful. Nico asks, the NBA Cup has been revealed for the Celtics in East Group B this upcoming season. What are your thoughts of the Celtics making an impact during the Cup, and can they win it? So the thing about the Cup is, literally anybody can win it because it's still regular season games. So the Cup, which as the Celtics start to get worse, the interest in the NBA Cup gets a little bit more, gets a little bit greater. Is that right? Because for a team aspiring to be a champion, who gives a damn? But if your team is like middle of the road, then playing for something, especially when you've got younger guys on the team, playing for something and really going for it is a little bit more meaningful. So I don't know if they care as much this year, but at some point they're going to be a little bit more, I think, mindful of, hey, let's try to win this thing because it's the only thing we're going to win. So Group B, Brooklyn, Detroit, Orlando, Philly. Look, Detroit and Orlando are going to be tough. Philly, I have no idea, right? They might be with Embiid. Like if you get Embiid and I don't know what Maxi's status is, but there's the possibility that Philly can be tough and that Embiid's going to want to play the Celtics now because they won't have Al Horford. And so he's going to have Embiid's going to feast on whoever the Celtics throw out there. So that might be a tough. Detroit will be tough. Orlando, definitely. Philly be tough, presumably. And Brooklyn is, Brooklyn. And so that could be a win. But Jaylen and Derrick and whoever's left beyond that, they'll make their, they'll make things competitive. But I don't know if the Celtics can get past. I don't know if they're going to beat Detroit this upcoming season. I don't think they're going to beat Orlando. It's not a gimme. I think Detroit and Orlando is going to be favored. It's going to be weird this upcoming season because I'm so used to putting previews together on Boston Sports Journal. And seriously, for 2 straight seasons, when I put the line, it's always been Celtics favored, except for seriously a handful of games in 2 full seasons. Even throughout that entire Knicks series, it's been like Celtics were favored for almost all of those games. So I don't think they'll make noise in this cup. I don't think they can win it. But the past 2 seasons, I've thought they could win it. And so now that I don't think they will is when I'll end up having to go to Vegas for this. So, but no, I do not believe the Celtics can do that. Wowie says, random thoughts. I'm assuming Jaylen Brown returns. Can we just try him at the 2 spot? With his nuclear athleticism, I think he can overwhelm guys at that position. I think he's been kind of I think he's considered a 2 anyway. It depends on, first of all, let me backtrack for a second. These positions, 1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't necessarily matter. They'll guard him with whatever. Even if he starts at the 2, doesn't mean that the other 2 specifically has to be the guy who guards Jaylen. They're gonna throw size at Jaylen if they can, and frankly, I think they're gonna throw a lot of double teams at Jaylen if they can. This is going to be a season where Jaylen's going to have to become a hell of a passer or continue improving as a passer, because I don't think that the defenses the Celtics face are going to just be playing him straight up. With the full roster over the past couple of seasons where you're starting Derrick and Drew and Jaylen and Jayson and Porzingis, that you can't double team there. But now this team, Jaylen's going to be double teamed like crazy. So I don't think it matters whether it's technically a 2 or a 3. But he's going to face defenses that he hasn't really seen before. Not a lot of anyway. So I think the starting, I'm trying to piece it through in my head here. Derrick White, Jaylen Brown, Garza will be the center. The problem is, do you have Simons or not? Do you have Niang or not? If you have Simons, then he has to be your shooting guard because he's like 6'3". He's smaller than Jaylen. So you could throw out lineups where Jaylen it's Derrick, Jaylen, I don't know, Shireman. I'm looking through this roster is just not great. Jaylen at the 2 is going to be tough. I'll put it that way. I'll just leave it at that. When Jayson comes back, Jaylen at the 2, sure. And you want to have Derrick White, Jaylen, and Jayson, and then a double big kind of thing, or a power forward, more power forwardy guy than Tatum. That I can see. So, but yeah, not right now. We'll come back. We'll talk about Xavier Tillman's contract. We'll talk about players who hate me and a coaching cage fight. It's all coming up next. All right. Thanks everybody for making this show your first listen every day. Remember, everydayers, you got 2 days off this week. I love the everydayers who are with me normally Monday through Friday. This is Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. So that's great. Great news. Just because things are slowing down. Cool. We'll be here for you. Still 3 days a week. That's a lot of podcasting, and it's all free. Let's wrap up the mailbag. JohnKaralis.com/mailbag for questions. Again, Paul asks, to offload Tillman's contract, could the Celtics just send money, or they have to include another sweetener like a second-round pick? So you don't want to send money because that hard caps you. And I'm trying to remember whether it's, and I'll find it in a second here. Sending money out in a trade used to be just standard practice. Now, if you send out money in a trade, it hard caps you. Let's see, at the second apron, I believe. Yes, second apron. Sending out cash in a trade caps you at the second apron. So the Celtics can't actually send out cash in a trade technically right now because they're still technically over as far as everybody's estimates go, the second apron. So Tillman, and also on top of that, you can't just send out cash for a player trade. You got to send something of actual value, which is a pick, even though it could just be a top 55 protected second round pick, which is a fake pick, but you still have to send something, and you just don't want to tie up assets like that if you can avoid it. So, but if they were just bent on offloading Tillman's contract, yes, they would have to send a pick. Mike, well, let's have some fun here. Mike says, in your 20 years of covering the team, are you aware of any Celtics player who genuinely just did not like you? If yes, what's the story? Also, was that a Caldor t-shirt the other day? It was a Caldor t-shirt. I love my vintage shirts. I love my t-shirts. We all know that. So that was Caldor. I do not know of any players that just outright disliked me. However, there is one story where I think, like, I'm not sure what Carson Edwards was like, why he had an issue, but I remember specifically years ago, I'd requested Carson Edwards out of practice, and the PR brought him over and they said, Carson, John Karalis would like to talk to you. And he gave an eye roll. He gave a very exaggerated eye roll. And I was just asking, I mean, I could not have been asking any more benign questions. I didn't even remember what the questions were. This was not a serious story that I was working on. This was just a a quick couple of questions. I don't know why he rolled his eyes at me. I don't know what his issue ever was. If it was me specific or if he didn't want to answer the question, that's the closest answer I can give you to whether a Celtics player has ever not liked me personally. Now, I have had some players like not thrilled with the questions I've asked, but it's never been I think, personal thing. But I try not to shy away from any particular questions to ask a player. I think, and I think I keep it fair. So even if a player says, if a player doesn't like the question that I'm going for, I'm always available to kind of clear things up. I've never had a player come up to me in the locker room and have an issue with what I wrote. Like, I think last season, Joel Embiid went after a particular columnist in Philly and had a problem with one of the way the story was reported or something. I've never had anything like that. So that's good. That's good. I think what that means is players at least think I'm fair. I'm not saying like, I don't know if any, like, let me just add to that answer to a question you didn't ask. I don't think there are any players who actually like me either. You know what I mean? So I'm not going in there saying I'm well liked. I also, I think we all understand that we're here for professional reasons, right? And I think guys like respect me and, will say, oh, hey, it's good to see you. Like I saw Kemba Walker and Grant Williams when they came through town last year with Charlotte, said hi, quick hug, like, good to see you. That kind of respect, like it's, a nice cordial relationship, but I don't think I'm not hanging out with anybody, nor would I want to. We don't cross that line. So just to be clear, if anybody hates me, oh well, but I don't think anybody's like, hey, that Karalis is a good guy. I think they're just like, they not hating me is the best I can expect from a player. All right, let's wrap it up with Pistol P, who says, Joe versus Ime in a cage fight. Who are you betting on? And then in parentheses, check that Rhode Island bias. Listen, in a cage fight, I'm picking Joe. Joe's a trained fighter. He's trained in martial arts. I'm always picking the trained guy over the not trained guy. Now, street fight, Ime's got like that dad strength. I wouldn't want to fight Ime Udoka. But listen, trained fighter versus non-trained fighter. Even if the non-trained fighter is a dog, trained fighter has the every advantage because you know how to use your body and all that stuff against the other guy, and how to use their momentum against them. All little tricks and all that. But I also think that even though I'm picking Joe to win, I'm picking Ime to get some shots in. And just he's whatever fight Ime Udoka gets into, if he's not winning the fight, he's leaving a mark. And so there would be no winners in that fight. But just, if you've got fight training and you know how to throw a punch and you know how to grapple, then you're probably gonna win most of the fights you get into. All right, that's the mailbag. As you can tell, silly questions are invited. Sure, let's have some fun with it. Fun questions about me, whatever. It's all fair game. So go check it out. JohnKaralis.com/mailbag. Send in your questions. Let me know what you want to know. Subscribe to this podcast. Again, now we're 3 days a week starting now. So for this week, all of August, first week of September, then we'll get back to the 5 days a week. So you got about a month and a half of 3 days a week. Then we're back to 5. So subscribe still. Show's still free. It's available there. It's on YouTube. Get there. Add your 2 cents in the comments section, and then share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.